Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, your co-host, Shaq. We're going to be talking UFC Vegas 8, Alexander Rakic versus Anthony Lionheart Smith. And Shaq, it's going down this Saturday night in Las Vegas, Nevada, a light heavyweight showdown in the main event. And now since Jon Jones vacated his belt, it seems like both these guys are very, very close to a title shot with a win here, Shaq.
Yeah, the light heavyweight division's wide open now. I'm glad to see Reyes and Blachowicz, duking it out for that strap. And these guys aren't far behind, both coming off, setbacks in their last fight. But this is a good opportunity to redeem themselves. Rakic coming off the split loss to Volkan. I know Lionheart's got a win over Volkan, but that last fight, it definitely got ugly. So I know he wants to redeem himself.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And it's interesting because, Anthony Lionheart Smith's had over 40 pro fights. Alexander Rakic, this is his 15th fight. So, man, step up in competition in a way. But the way that people regard Alexander Rakic, they talk about this kid like he's a future world champion. Like if Jon Jones was still the champ, this could potentially be the guy to dethrone him. So if he comes out here and he can knock out a guy like Anthony Smith, that's going to kind of validate everyone's comments about him.
100%. Just because he has one loss doesn't mean, that it's over for him, man. It was a very close fight. And now Anthony Smith, a guy who's fought for the title, who's got wins over guys like Gustafsson and Ozdemir, finishes, so this will be a huge win for Rakic.
No doubt about it. Well, Shaq, let's get right down to business because first up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Sean Brady, he's 12-0, and Christian Aguilera is 14-6. Currently, they got Sean Brady minus 400. The comeback on Christian Aguilera is plus 325. Well, Shaq, when I first heard about this matchup, getting announced, I was like, oh, shit, there's going to be a mismatch. We get to cash on Brady. We get to do the whole bit. But as you know, Vegas ain't no charity. They ain't out here giving out free money. So they lined it appropriately. We're looking at minus 400 for Brady. So do you think that's about accurate, or do you think there actually still might be a little value left over on Brady here? Because I do find it kind of hard to find, to see Christian Aguilera winning this fight.
Yeah, Sean Brady, he's definitely the better fighter. He's the more hype prospect. He's been doing his thing, got the 2 wins over a solid vet like McGee and a prospect like Nardiev. And Aguilera, his fight was very quick in the UFC over Ivy. Ivy got stunned and kind of just went down. So, we still need to see more of Aguilera. He kind of does have a shaky past, some stoppage losses at 55 and at 45. So, that this guy might have possibly had a little bit of a weight issue. But let's be honest here, man. He's a good striker. He's got, I think, double-digit knockouts. Like, the dude has knockout power. And I would say the weakness in Sean Brady's game, if I had to say, it would be his boxing and his striking because, he is somewhat of a small guy for 170. He kind of, if he does get backed up, he can kind of struggle at times. But Brady, man, his grappling is legit. I know he trains at Daniel Gracie down there in Philadelphia. And he's the more well-rounded guy. Aguilera, he's been stopped before. But I do think Aguilera could potentially, fight a lot, better than the line indicates. He does have knockout power. So I think Brady will just play it safe and get the job done. But, Aguilera, man, he can hit 11 knockouts, I believe, on his record, man. He does put guys away. So I don't think there's much value on the line. I think you're going to see a guy like Brady play it safe in this fight.
One thing I like about Brady, for only being 2-0 in the UFC, this guy is very, very smart, and he knows exactly what he needs to do to get the job done. And that's a quality that we truly admire and appreciate in a fighter, that, he doesn't have to come out here and stand and bang for his ego. He knows exactly what he's got to do to get the job done. And look, Christian Aguilera is a dangerous guy. He's had 20 pro fights. He's experienced. Most of his wins are by knockout. He hits like a truck. On the flip side, he's also been knocked out a couple times, so there are questions about the durability. But a guy like Brady, if you're worried, if you're parlaying Brady and you're worried, oh, is he going to stand and bang with Christian and possibly, risk getting knocked out? Brady's too smart for that. Brady knows when to, mix in those level changes, take you to the mat, and do exactly what he needs to do to get the job done. And this is a guy who most of his wins are by decision anyways, so I really respect that quality. He knows how to go 15 hard minutes, knows exactly when to turn up, knows when to kind of feel you out. That last performance against Nardiev, that was a mature performance, Shaq. That first round, he took his ass whooping like a man, comes back. When it was time to turn up, Sean Brady turned up, and I think he's going to turn up on Christian Aguilera. So I got Sean Brady. Probably a unanimous decision, but the knockout wouldn't surprise me either. Now, next up in the strawweight division, we got a matchup between Emily Whitmire, she's 4-3, and Pollyanna Vianna is 10-4. Currently, they got Emily Whitmire minus 140. The comeback on Pollyanna Vianna is plus 120. Well, Shaq, this open minus 115 Pollyanna Vianna, minus 105 Whitmire. Currently, we're looking at Whitmire minus 140, which is kind of interesting. So this is what I got to say. I mean, both these ladies have, they like to scramble back and forth. They like to take the back. They like to go for arm bars. They like to do the whole bit, no doubt about it. But it's one of those situations where I kind of line it a pick 'em, man. On Pollyanna's, worst days, she's out here losing to Hannah Cifers. What was the other really embarrassing loss? She lost to Veronica Macedo. You understand what I'm saying? But on her best day, she was out here beating Amanda Ribas. She knocked her out in the first round. That's something that Emily Whitmire would never accomplish in a million years. I mean, let's be honest. She fought Amanda Ribas. You saw what happened. And we can sit here and say, oh, it's a new Ribas, this and that. But, I don't think that even on Emily Whitmire's best day, she can get a win on that level. So it's really about, is Pollyanna going to fight to the level of her competition? Because like I said, when she's in there with Cifers and Macedo, she's out here losing. But when she's in here against real women, she's winning. I'm going to go with Vianna just because I think her ceiling is higher. Hopefully she shows up in her best form and goes out here and wins this fight, Shaq.
Yeah, this fight's interesting because, I feel like it's a case of where one fighter is probably a little more put together, probably a little more well-rounded versus one that's a little looser, but might have more heart and might be a little bit tougher. So I think Whitmire, she was on a little bit of a streak with the wins over Moyle and Albu, but those are very, very the Albu fight was very quick, less than a minute. And I just have a hard time believing that maybe that she can keep it together for 15 minutes if someone pressures her and puts her in arm bar spots or spots on the mat. I mean, I feel like her ground game is very questionable, and I don't see her as the type of person to pull off arm bars. I feel like she's more of a boxer wrestler, so she's got a double leg that she's hit a couple times, like against Albu and Jamie Moyle. So I think Vianna, let's just be honest here. We got two girls that aren't very good, but I feel like Vianna can finish the fight, with an armbar. I mean, from what I've seen, it doesn't take much to break Emily Whitmire. I just think it's the question I'm trying to answer here is Vianna good enough to put her in those spots? Because, you look at these JJ Aldrich fights where she got dominated, she lost to Hannah Cifers, who, potentially could be out of the UFC here shortly by split decision, just all due to the fact that she keeps leaving her chin up in the air. But at the same time, man, I feel like those girls that I just named kind of throw with more intensity than Emily Whitmire. I don't think Emily Whitmire commits fully, man. So I'm actually going to go with Vianna as well. I can't necessarily say how, but I do think that she's going to put Whitmire in a tough spot and possibly get her out of there with either an arm bar or a triangle. But I think it's going to be a chaotic type of fight. So I'm interested to see what happens.
Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Bruce Leroy Caceres, he's 16-12, and Austin Springer is 12-3. Currently, they got Bruce Leroy Caceres minus 175. The comeback on Austin Springer is plus 145. So this is interesting, man, because initially Giga Chikadze was supposed to fight Bruce Leroy. Now it's the guy that beat Giga Chikadze on Contender Series that's getting the call. But the thing is here, man, on that show where Austin Springer, beat Giga Chikadze, I don't know if you remember, and I could be way off, but off the top of my head, I feel like everyone got signed that night except Austin Springer. They weren't very impressed with him, and I feel like he kind of got whooped that entire fight against Giga until, Giga kind of showed that, hey, at the time he was just a kickboxer, needed to round out his game. And honestly, I think that was a good thing for Giga, because now he's come back a lot better. He's undefeated in the UFC. But Austin Springer is getting his opportunity here. Now, Shaq, Bruce Leroy, let's just put it this way. Let's be 100% upfront, just like we always are. There's different levels of gatekeepers in the UFC. There's gatekeepers to the top 20. There's gatekeepers to the top 15, the top 10, the top 5. And then there's gatekeepers that measure if you even belong in the UFC at all. And that's exactly what Bruce Leroy Caceres is. If you cannot beat Bruce Leroy Caceres, you do not belong in the UFC. So my question for you is, does Austin Springer belong in the UFC?
Yeah, I think Springer, he's tough. He moves forward. He's got good wrestling, good grappling on the feet. He definitely can get a little bit carried away and have the tendency to get rocked and wobbled and dropped in his fights. He fought Gritzmacher on Tough. He got beat up very, very badly in that fight. And then he was able to stay on Weather Storm, stay on him, stay on Giga, and was able to get the finish. So props to him. I think he's at least tough enough to be a UFC fighter. Yes, but man, Caceres, man, even though he's got 30 fights and he's lost damn near half of them, I think he's still a solid fighter, man. He's still able to go out there and take care of these middle low tier guys like Ocho Peterson and Martin Bravo, and he's able to walk those guys into his left hand, and his left hand's money, man. He beat Sergio Pettis back in the day. I know you remember that. Went to split decision with Yair Rodriguez, even though I thought it should have been unanimous. But hey, he still went to split decision. But I think Caceres, man, is the better fighter here, and I think that guys, that don't have good footwork, that don't have good movement, he's able to really trick them into walking into his left hand, and then he starts dropping them, starts piecing them up. He did that with Martin Bravo, did that with Ocho. But if he fights like someone like good, like a 19-1 Wang Guan, or a specialist like Kron Gracie, or a Faber, or somebody like that, then that's when he gets his ass beat. So I think he's gonna take care of business here. I'm gonna say my knockout too, man. I think Caceres gets on a nice little win streak here.
This is about to be the first 3-fight win streak that Caceres has had since 2012, 2013, 2014. He actually low-key had a 5-fight win streak in the UFC back in the day. I know one of those says no contest. My boy was out here chiefing up before the fight, so they called it a no contest, which is total bullshit. But we all know he won that fight.
Yeah, 100%, man. A lot of people forget. My boy Caceres was out there with George and Kimbo and all them fighting in the streets. You can't forget about that.
Actually on the Ultimate Fighter, he was like one of my favorite guys on that season he was on. I was actually rooting for him in that fight he had against Michael Johnson. It was kind of funny how it all went down. But yeah, he was that street fighting guy. He'd always be known for getting taken down. Then he'd catch these guys in triangle chokes. You remember that, Shaq? And now he's kind of developed the kind of flashy striking style. I just think he's got more to prove, or not more to prove, but I think he brings more to the table than Austin Springer. Austin Springer, look, he's a tough guy. He's been on the regional scene, even though if we're going to talk about his regional scene, Shaq, we got to be 100% upfront that, he beat a 50-year-old, and I'm not even exaggerating. He beat a guy that's 50 years old a fight or two ago. You know what I'm saying, man? So I think he still needs some more work before he's quite UFC ready over here. I mean, dude, you remember the Chris Gritzmacher beatdown? I know you remember the Chris Gritzmacher beatdown. Back when we max bet Chris Gritzmacher to beat Joe Lozon, one of the fights we watched was his beatdown of Austin Springer. I know you remember that, Shaq. So I think Austin Springer still got a little bit of work to do. He also got knocked out by Julian Erosa, if I remember correctly. So he's got some work to do. So I'm going to go with Bruce Leroy to make it 3 in a row in 2020. Now, next up in the middleweight division, we got an interesting matchup between Zach Cummings, he's 23-7, and Alessio Di Chirico is 12-4. Currently, they got Alessio Di Chirico minus 115, and Zach Cummings is minus 105. Shaq, a lot of people think this fight is a bit of a pick-em. It's going to be, this low output fight where, you flip a coin and see who the judges give the split decision to. Do you agree with that, or do you kind of edge one side, a little more significantly?
Yeah, man, I think Di Chirico, you got two tough guys that are both known for taking a punch. Cummins, the type of chin that he has. And we know that pretty much every fight his face is, he's got two black eyes. He's gonna get busted up, but we know he likes to dish out punishment with the left hand as well. And Di Chirico, I feel like he's tough and he's solid everywhere. His issue is just he doesn't throw enough in some of these matchups, and then he likes to, complain that he got robbed by decision. Now, I'm actually one of the few people that thought he won his fight against Marquez. I know Marquez missed weight by 8 pounds or so. How much weight did he miss by? It was by a lot, man. From what I remember, 6 to 8 pounds. Yeah, but and he was able to deal with that. And his last 2 losses were to Kevin Holland, which I was there for live, and I don't think he fought a bad fight. It's just he's just not better than Kevin, and Kevin had to play it safe against him, man. his fight against Makhmud Muradov, who it was looking very good these days at 185. The third round, Chirico had him in some very tough spots, but the first 2 rounds, he didn't do enough. So to be honest, man, I feel like Zach Cummings is a step down from those two. I feel like Cummings doesn't throw as much. He's not as dynamic as those two guys. So I do actually feel like Chirico could possibly have some success in this matchup. But it's just I don't trust him enough for him to put his foot on the pedal, for him to have a sense of urgency. But I kind of slightly lean him in this matchup, man. I feel like he's the younger guy. I feel like his job might possibly be on the line a little bit. And I feel like Cummings just kind of is a little bit stagnant, man. And I feel like if Cummings, we're in some of those matchups like Holland and Makhmud Muradov, he might possibly get, dominated. I mean, look at his fight with Trevor Smith. I know he was able to get the job done, man, but it was a sloppy, ugly fight. So I'm actually going to go with Chirico to somewhat kind of save his job here and get the win.
Yeah, Zach Cummings, he kind of has a reputation of being that guy that you go out there, again, kind of like Frankie Edgar back in the day, where like you hit him with an aluminum bat flush on the chin, and he'll kind of laugh at you and keep fighting, keep moving forward. And I know you remember specifically that Ponzinibbio fight, the kind of bombs he took, and was just able to march forward the entire time. And Zach Cummings, a very durable guy, very tough to deal with, a little bit on the slower side, but hits like a truck. He's got some slick submissions. He's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu, trains with James Krause and all those guys. So, he's got some calf kicks as well. But Alessio Di Chirico, he's a guy who I'm a bit higher on than most people, because most people just think of him as just this average guy, which I understand where you're coming from 100%. I feel like he's got more to show, and he hasn't quite shown it yet. If you catch my drift a little bit, like I feel like he totally should have beat Eric Spicely. I feel like these fights against Kevin Holland and Makhmud Muradov, those guys are potential, future top 15 guys. Like I feel like Kevin Holland and Makhmud Muradov are two very, very bright prospects in the middleweight divisions, guys with very bright futures. And I felt like Alessio Di Chirico gave him tough fights. It was just a matter of he needs a little more output. Sometimes he gets a little frustrated in these fights. But the thing is, Zach Cummings ain't exactly going to come out here and, put up 100 significant strikes and, make Alessio have to really catch up on points. I feel like this is the kind of fight where Alessio can do his kind of slow, methodical fight, keep it standing, pump the jab out there a little bit. So, even though, Zach, he does have that tendency to, kind of make it a war, kind of make it a dogfight, I feel like Alessio is going to be ready for that. And I think he's at a better current point in his career. One thing about Zach Cummings, he's still durable as hell. He can still take an iron shot to the jaw, but I feel like he's slowing down a little bit, and he's not necessarily going to start getting knocked out or anything like that. But some of these performances have kind of been like a step down from what he once was. I don't know if y'all agree or disagree with that, but that's just kind of how I viewed it. Like even that Tractor Prazeres fight, I feel like, hey, I know Tractor's a beast, but a couple of years ago, no 5'6" guy was beating Zach Cummings in a fight. And now shit's starting to change. So I'm going to go with Alessio Di Chirico to kind of edge out a controversial split decision here. We'll see what happens. Now, next up in the strawweight division, we got a matchup between Mallory Martin, she's 6-3, and Hannah Cifers is 10-6. Currently, they got Mallory Martin minus 325, Shaq. The comeback on Hannah Cifers is plus 265. So, my girl Hannah Cifers is getting disrespected again. NFC vet. Shout out to Hannah Cifers. Very exciting to watch. Fun striker. She's taking on Deron Wynn's girlfriend. So, Deron Wynn's girlfriend is going to try to come out here, try to mix in takedowns, do the whole bit. And we know that's a path to victory against Hannah Cifers for sure. But I also don't really think that, Mallory Martin's on the Angela Hill levels, on the Mackenzie Dern level. I don't think she's anywhere near that. I think, if anything, she's closer to the people that Hannah Cifers has actually beat, like Pollyanna Vianna and Jody Escobar and all of them. That being said, all bullshit aside, you think the minus 325 favorite rolls here?
Man, look, Hannah Cifers, I feel like it's just a product. She's been taking bad matchups, or, she got on that streak, and then they started taking fights against Mackenzie Dern and Angela Hill and, what was the other one? Agapova, where she got stopped on short notice up a weight class. So, Hannah Cifers, her team's just really not really been putting her in good spots, and Mallory Martin, man, I agree. I feel like they're honestly close on somewhat same levels. It's just that Hannah Cifers is, even she's actually very underratedly strong. It's just that her reach is very short, and she men to sometimes when they get on the ground to just completely fall apart and give up submissions to Agapova, who shout out to Agapova, because man, that was that not one of the biggest stunts you've ever seen in your entire life?
Close to it.
That was definitely top 3 stunts of all time, man. I was like, whoa, this is something else. But yeah, man,
Dude,
I feel like Mallory Martin.
Sorry to cut you off, but it was almost like in the video game, you come out spamming everything, then the energy,
it's like, what are you doing?
the energy meter gets to 0, and she's still spamming finishing combos. It's like, Maria, relax, Maria, chill.
It's like, chill out. What are you like? Relax. But yeah, man, I feel like Mallory Martin, she might have better footwork, slightly better kicks, but nowhere like significant anywhere like better than Hannah Cifers, in my opinion, personally. I think they're gonna be sweating this -3, especially if you play it at -325. Maybe if you got it at like -170, back at the original or where it was. But man, I just don't see Mallory Martin being this girl that's gonna come out here and put it on somebody, man. I feel like she's more of a point fighter, and I feel like Mackenzie Dern's got an elite submission ability. Agapova is a 25er. Granted, but man, Hannah Cifers just ain't been looking too good. The momentum's definitely on Martin's side, even though she got submitted her last fight. So I'll take her, but I'm gonna say by like split decision, like close, like sweat throughout the entire fight. So
yeah, look, at current price, it's a dog or pass situation 100%. But like you were saying, if you got it, -120, -150, even -170, okay, I can understand. But like relying on her here at this price, I think is ridiculous. But she's got a path to victory. Just get it to the mat, and you're probably going to win. Hannah's not going to get back up if you get this to the mat. But if, Mallory Martin wants to be cute, wants to test her stand-up, wants to stand and bang with Cifers, I lean Cifers in that kind of fight. In a stand-up fight, I got Cifers, but that 90% of fights hit the mat, right, Shaq? So I think this one will hit the mat too. I'm going to lean with Mallory Martin, but, I mean, come on. At this price, let's completely chill out, you know what I mean? So, yeah, shout out to my boy 8-Ball Rocco, Maria the Stunt, Agapova. My boy VCR Repairman says, I love a good stunt. I feel you there, 100%. All right, so next up in the 185-pound division, we got a matchup between Magny Coconut Bombs Pitolo, he's 13-6, and Impa Kasanganai is 7-0. Currently, they got Impa Kasanganai -130. The comeback on Magny Pitolo is +120. Shaq, this is a great fight for a lot of reasons, man. Because, like, I know the finished product version of Impa is not only, a guy that could beat Magny Pitolo, I think he's a future top 15 guy. The question is, can 7-0 Impa go out there and beat Magny Pitolo, who at this point is the most experienced and best fighter he's ever fought to date?
Oh, my bad. Yeah, man, this is an interesting matchup because Magny Pitolo, like, to be honest, like we know his history. We know that he's a banger. We know that he likes to come forward and throw combination punches, mixing it to the body and whatnot. He's got some fast hands, but just historically speaking, throughout his entire career, man, he's made just a lot of like what the fuck type of moments. Like, damn, dude, like what the hell was that? Like fights where he's winning, multiple fights that he's been winning, and that he literally just pulls a big no and gets finished. And that's what happened his last fight. Now, I'm not saying that he was dominating or winning or whatever, but I do think he was having some success. And the fact that, man, he kind of panicked in that submission really fast. It's like, it kind of just makes me think that is Mackie Pitolo even UFC caliber, man? Because his fight on Contender Series against Justin Sumter, who got knocked out the previous season against Ian Heinisch, also in the first round. He hit him with 4 shots to the body, and the dude goes down. I gotta think Impa Kasanganai is a lot tougher than that. And then he was cutting to 170. 170, he's cutting too much weight, this and that, but. Still, man, in the back of my head, it's like still to lose to Callan Potter, who in his other 2 fights has been stopped very, very fast in the first round by Kenan Song and Jalen Turner. It kind of makes me just wonder, like, damn, you still fucking got dominated against Callan Potter. Like, that's alarming to me, man. And I know he had the win over Charles Byrd, but Charles Byrd retired right after that fight. And we know that Charles Byrd's 37, 38 years old on the tail end of his career. And I thought it was a competitive fight for a round. And then Charles Byrd just got tired and kind of wanted to retire, man. So, Impa Kasanganai, I think he's got a very feasible, UFC debut on his hands against Mackie Pitolo. Impa, he's green. He hasn't been in a lot of situations, but to be honest, man, to the situations that he's been put into up to now, I mean, he's passed every test, and I mean, he fought Devorius Tubbs. We know Tubbs, at 3-0, at 3-0, 2-0, 3-0, man, and he still got the win. I mean, it wasn't the prettiest fight, but man, I feel like Impa's a grinder, man. When the going gets tough, he's able to will through. Look at his last fight; he didn't win that first round. The dude had some sharp knees up the middle, some sharp low kicks, and he definitely did get the better of Impa in the first round. But man, you got to make an adjustment, and I feel like that's what Mackie Pitolo fails to do in a lot of his fights, man. I just feel like, granted, I do think he's got faster hands than Impa, and Impa kind of does have like a little bit of that football stiffness, but I feel like, man, if Impa clinches Mackie or makes Mackie work in the clinch, that I think that he's big enough and strong enough to tire him out. And I also feel like, he can counter Mackie possibly and hurt Mackie and steal the rounds with big power shots, man. So I'm going to go with Impa Kasanganai to remain undefeated. I just don't feel like Mackie Pitolo can keep it together, man. Throughout a 15-minute process, I feel like he constantly just makes, WTF moments constantly in a lot of his fights. And it's sad because I do think he's a good striker. So I'm interested to see if he can possibly exploit Kasanganai in the boxing. But I just think that, man, if he gets hit, that he's not going to be able to maintain focus and on the mat, man. I really do think Kasanganai can get the better of him there. So I'm going to go with Kasanganai for a decision win.
Yeah, this is a really, really good fight. I'm very excited for it. Mackie Pitolo, super exciting fighter, win, lose, or draw. Someone that I truly enjoy watching. And I feel like he's a lot better at 185s than he is at 170s. He was cutting way too much weight for 170. I feel like at 185, he performs a lot better. That Darren Stewart fight was a big letdown, not just because I took the plus 150 on Mackie, but more so because it's like, dude, you're controlling the stand-up exchanges. You land the hardest shot of the fight. You go for the takedown, which we're thinking like, hey, perfect. We're going to mix in takedowns. Darren Stewart can't stuff a takedown to save his life. You go for the takedown, you execute the takedown, and then you leave your head on the outside and get choked. It's like, dude, like, really? Now, I understand that's a fixable mistake. You go back to the wrestling room, work on your head positioning. That's something that can easily be fixed. I understand that, but it's like, kind of like what you were talking about. This isn't just like a one-time thing. This has been a history of things. And that choke that he got hit with in the Stewart fight, I know it's Stewart's first career sub. Dakota Cochran did the exact same thing to him on the regional scene too, right, Shaq? So it's not the first time he's dove head first into a choke. Also wouldn't be the first time he gets knocked out stiff. Now, here's the thing, though. With Impa Kasanganai, it's really about where he's at right now in his respective career. Because, again, he's only 7-0. He's had less than 10 pro fights. You already know with these kids that have had less than 10 pro fights, they're going to be making these huge leaps every single time they fight. Now, the other factor is, and, when you talk about where someone's from and this and that, listen, man, Africans can fight. It is what it is. You look at Francis Ngannou, you look at Razak, Dalcha, there's a bunch of other ones, man. DeCasey, like, Africans can fight. This guy's from Congo. He's a first-generation American, meaning that, his parents moved from Congo to the States, had him. This guy is naturally gifted. He's a freak athlete. And the thing I like most about him is that he's got the heart of a champion. In both of his Contender Series fights, kind of started off a bit slow, and he didn't go out there and just win because he's got a higher vertical jump or because he can squat more, because he can do any shit. He won because he dug deep to a place in his heart and pulled both those wins out. So I respect him a lot for the kind of wins he pulled out on Contender Series both times. I feel like that's going to translate down the line to a guy that, in deep waters, if it's 1-1 going to the third round, he knows what he's got to do to bite down on that mouthpiece and get that third round win. Or if it's a 5-round fight, which, because, a guy like that's got championship aspirations, for a fact that if it's, 2-2 going to the fifth, he's the guy that's going to bite down on his mouthpiece and make it happen. Whereas Magny is a very momentum-based fighter. Magny's a guy where, hey, if he cracks you and hurts you, he's going to go off speed up top, rip the body, knock you out, do the whole bit. But if Magny's kind of falling behind on the cards, not that he's not tough. He's a Hawaiian warrior. He's very, very tough. He hits like a truck. He's well-rounded. He's decent everywhere. It's just that I feel like Magny can get a bit discouraged, and I feel like if this does become a battle of wills, that I got to go with Impa Kasanganai. It's just the first round is going to be, if you're betting the chalk on Impa, this first round is going to be a sweat because Magny hits like a truck. He comes to fight. He's experienced. He's better than anyone Impa's ever fought up until this point. So Magny's going to bring that fight, and Magny can potentially hit him with some hard stuff too. And, when I was talking about the African fighters, of course, I can't forget about the two champs, Kamaru Usman and Israel Adesanya. I can't believe I didn't mention them. But back to Impa Kasanganai, I think he projects to be a better fighter. It's all about where he is right now. So that's kind of where the guessing work is and, where the prediction comes into play. I'm going to say he's got enough to come out here and beat Maki Pitolo in his UFC debut. And I'm very excited to see what the future holds for him. And I hope Magny sticks around because he's a very, very exciting guy, win, lose, or draw. Now, next up in the light heavyweight division, we got the rematch between Magomed Ankalaev. He's 13-1, and Iwan Cutelaba is 15-5. Currently, they got Magomed Ankalaev minus 320. The comeback on Iwan Cutelaba is plus 260. Well, Shaq, this is interesting too because it seems to me like Iwan Cutelaba's first round KO or bust. Whenever he's been past the first round, he's always lost, except for against Johnny Bravo Wilson, which we all know Magomed Ankalaev's on a completely different level than John Wilson. So basically, can Iwan get this first round knockout, or is he about to get out techniqued, out-pointed, and possibly knocked out?
Yeah, man, I like Jan's intensity, and the line was kind of maybe a little more wide now, but I remember it was somewhat wide the first time too. For Ankalaev, he was coming off those nice wins over Dalcha, stoppages in Prachnio as well. I think Ankalaev's the better fighter, and like you said, that's pretty much it. Cutelaba, you get him out the first round. We know what usually tends to happen. He gasses out. He's got good footwork early, and I kind of do think like, man, it's kind of it's a little bit of a kind of similar to Brady and Aguilera in a sense where I kind of feel like Ankalaev might kind of choose to play this safe because like he already knocked him out once, and by the way, that was a bullshit stoppage, 100%. But at the same time, Ankalaev did hurt him, and he was getting the better in the early going. So I feel like Ankalaev is honestly just better than Cutelaba everywhere. It's just at this price, it's like, man, it's gonna be hard to live up to that again, So I feel like, yeah, Cutelaba's somewhat live for a first round KO. I mean, two big 205ers swinging early on in the fight, but I feel like, man, Cutelaba's composure when the fight gets going just kind of just falls apart at times, man. I know Glover, but at the same time, in his defense, Glover Teixeira is a legit top 5, 205 pounder. And I mean, he had his moments in that fight, but we know what happens when Glover gets on top of these guys. It's usually game over. So, I actually do think there's a little bit of value on Cutelaba, but I just think Ankalaev is the pick. I think he's the better fighter, but from the numbers side of things, it's kind of wide in my opinion.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, man, where we already know what Cutelaba brings to the table. There's not going to be any surprises here. If he wins, it'll be a first-round knockout. The thing is, man, Ankalaev, he's too smooth. He's too technical. He's too precise. He's just too good for Cutelaba everywhere. Now, I agree. The price might be a little. We're looking almost at minus 350. I get it, but it's like it's not just the fact that Cutelaba's first round or bust in terms of like the physical stuff, like also like the mental stuff, man. I feel like if you push this guy, I feel like he's a bully. You know what I mean? All you got to do is get this guy past the first round, take a couple of his best shots, and he's gonna check out. I mean, this is
and then the bully turns into a small man.
exactly. You already know the deal. So Cutelaba's a bully, and honestly, man, I felt like it was a knock on his fight IQ to do that whole fucking bullshit possum game that he did that last.
And you know what's funny, man? You know what's funny? He actually did that in the Glover fight too, man. Like he's kind of a nut job. Like he was kind of doing a little bit of the Rocky thing in the Glover fight as well after he almost knocked him out. So this guy, his thought process is a little interesting.
It really is, and it's like, okay, so you're trying to lull him into a false sense of security and then bomb off on him. I get that, but like you saw the bombs he was throwing back, like they were ugly, dude. Like they weren't like even close to landing. They weren't like, oh man, if one of those would have landed, holy shit. It was more like, dude, what the fuck is this guy doing? So I think it's more than him just being a bully. I think he ain't the brightest either. I think his fight IQ is extremely questionable, his decision making. And now, he's coming off a little COVID scare. Has he been training these last 2 weeks? Has he been running his miles? Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. I don't know. I got Ankalaev, man. One thing about these Russians is their demeanor doesn't change too often. I don't think he was too thrown off by, the 2 weeks off. I don't think he was out here eating cheeseburgers. I don't think, dude, he's got Rizvan with him. He's got the whole crew with him. There's a lot of, politics involved too with these Russians. And that it's more than just him winning for his family. If he wants that new Mercedes on Monday, he's got to come out here with this dub, Shaq. So you already know the deal. I got Magomed Ankalaev to get this one done. And it's probably going to be a knockout again, except this time it's going to be a real knockout. But if it happens to go the 3-round distance, I favor Ankalaev there as well. So bottom line, I got Magomed Ankalaev to win this fight. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Ricardo Lamas, he's 19-8, and Bill Algeo is 13-4. Currently, they got Ricardo Lamas minus 300. The comeback on Bill Algeo is plus 250. Shaq, I know you remember when everyone freaked out because Dana didn't sign Brendan Loughnane when he beat Bill Algeo. I know it's not really funny, but how, unique is it that Bill Algeo got the call before Brendan Loughnane? But that being said, look, we're guys that have faded Lamas in the past, right? We faded him against Calvin Kattar and, against other dangerous guys in the past. You picked Josh Emmett against him. But one thing that we have in common, when we pick against Lamas is usually the guys we pick have a big danger factor about them. I mean, Calvin Kattar, one of the most devastating right hands in the featherweight division. Josh Emmett, one of the most devastating left hooks in the division. These guys have big danger factors. You have to have a danger factor to beat Lamas. Bill Algeo doesn't really strike me as a very dangerous guy at all. Now, what he does have going for him is he's long for the weight class. He's 6 feet tall. He's experienced. He's got that going for him. But he's not exactly known for his one-punch knockout power. And he kind of reminds me of like Julian Erosa. He's tall. He's goofy. He's a decent fighter, just gets hit a little bit too much. I don't quite think he's ready for this level, but Lamas is 38 years old. So sometimes when you get up there in age, guys that would have never, breathed your air a couple years prior can come out here and beat you. Do you view this as that situation, or is it a vet lesson time Saturday night?
Well, yeah, man, because the line, it kind of started, low for, so I was like, damn, why is Ricardo, less than minus 200 to a dude that lost the Loughnane, you know what I'm saying? But then you kind of get to digging into it, and man, there's look, Lamas has had a great run, former title challenger, fought the best of the best, this and that, but, lately, man, the last few years, I haven't really been that impressed. I feel like he's a little bit hesitant to throw just due to that fact that chin has been touched in a way. Josh Emmett, let's just be honest here, is the hardest hitting 145er in the weight class, and Calvin Kattar probably is the best boxer in the weight class, and both those guys, had a field day with Lamas's chin, and not to mention, man, he's had some KO losses before that too, some vicious ones. So the Mendez one, I know you remember what my boy Yuri Alcantara did to him back in the day in WEC. I know you remember what Danny Last Call Castillo did to him as well back in the WEC. So Lamas has been knocked stiff several times. When like this is 100% facts. And Algeo, like you said, he's like an Erosa, tough kid, long, so he can create. I do think he can create problems with the length, like, and he's a tough kid, and he ain't scared to get his ass beat. Kind of like Erosa. Erosa will move forward with his hands down. And the issue with that style is, yeah, you might be able to get off on some long jabs, some teeps, some high kicks. It's just that his defense is so bad that, man, if Lamas decides to commit to his hands, this is where he can actually have some success. It's just, man, if I was a betting, if I was like looking at this fight, I'd more look at to see if Algeo can make the distance, man, because I do think he's a tough guy. I don't think he's going to actually beat Lamas, but I do think he can hang in there tough with him. I feel like Lamas has lost a step, and this guy's long and he's tough. Loughnane put it on him, but, man, I kind of had a feeling like, man, you might start seeing Lamas start taking L's to guys like, I feel like Loughnane could fight Lamas like no problem. Like, I didn't think they were that far off anymore. And you saw look what happens when Lamas is fighting these relevant guys. He's getting stopped in the very first round, and he was able to get that knockout over Darren Elkins. But Dan, when's the last time Darren Elkins won a fight?
Good question. Let me look up the encyclopedia. I have no idea.
So I feel like him, Elkins, Lamas, Mendez, all those guys that came up in that era are kind of, on the outs, man. So I'm gonna pick Lamas. Don't get me wrong. I think Ricardo Lamas is gonna defeat Bill Algeo. I don't think he's gonna lose to Bill Algeo. It could be a guillotine, a decision. But, man, I see a guy who's a little bit hesitant to commit to his hands. 38 years old, coming off a broken jaw. At this price, in my opinion, I'd be careful.
Yeah, I feel where you're coming from. But if you got in under 2-1 or even 2-1, I get it. You know what I mean? Because this guy is not on Ricardo Lamas level. It's just more so of a thing where, Lamas, he's getting up there in age. He's been stopped brutally many, many times, not just recently, back in the day, like Shaq alluded to. Now, real quick, Gerwin says Lamas just got his second-degree black belt. That's a good piece of info. And, shout out to those guys at MMA Masters. I feel like they've got one of the most underrated gyms in Florida right now. They've got a very good trap kick game.
I heard a certain top welterweight join that gym.
Oh, yeah. Colby's in there, right?
Yeah.
Hey,
I wonder how that's going.
All their wrestling games are about to improve big time. And I feel like his jiu-jitsu is going to improve as a result because most of those guys there are black belts. You know what I mean? They've got an amazing calf kicking game. So I actually really like the kind of game plans they come up with at MMA Masters. And I feel like they're going to continue to fly under the radar. So I like what they come up with. And the low kick is something that Bill Algeo is very susceptible to. It's just a thing where, look, he's a long man. And, in 2020, you're going to see 6-foot-tall featherweights. Can he lift a knee up there, touch Lamas on the chin? It's not going to take much to put Lamas out. So I completely understand that, this isn't a lock or anything like that. But I do favor Lamas. I think he's better everywhere. I think he's more experienced. And I think he's been in shape, being ready for a fight. Interestingly enough, and I know a lot of people disagree with me on this. I was actually going to pick Ryan Hall via first-round submission, but they're not fighting anymore. Now it's Bill Algeo. I'm going to go with Lamas. Probably a unanimous decision here. Now, next up in the featured bout, we got a matchup between Alexa Grasso, she's 11-3, and Ji-Yeon Kim is 9-2. Currently, they got Alexa Grasso minus 265. The comeback on Ji-Yeon Kim is plus 245. So Alexa Grasso, she's moving up a weight class, taking on Ji-Yeon Kim, who's historically a very tough out. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, there's a size difference, but Alexa doesn't really have to worry about being taken down here. And also, one thing about Ji-Yeon Kim, she's very tough, but in being very tough, the reason we know she's very tough is because she doesn't, block punches. She doesn't move her head out the way. She doesn't, block punches with her hands. She blocks punches with her face. So that kind of lets me think that Alexa Grasso is probably going to come out here and win a unanimous decision. So she probably connects a little bit more, but Ji-Yeon's tough, man. So I'm not out here laying the chalk, but I'm going to go with Alexa Grasso via decision. She probably lands more, lands cleaner, wins the decision that way.
Yeah, I feel like this is actually a good fight because, Kim is, she's one-dimensional with the boxing, but, man, her offense with the hands, I see why they call her Fire Fist. Her offense with the hands is legit. she definitely has snapped some heads back. I feel like that's why she got the win over Justine Quiche. The Fabian, I don't know why that was a split, but she landed some big punches. But yeah, defensively, she definitely will take some, but she can dish it out. And Grasso, yeah, I feel like she's going to be healthier in this weight class. And this is a different style matchup. She usually is always fighting wrestlers like Esparza, Marcos, Suarez. Like she's been fighting wrestlers for a while now, and I know, but at the same time, man, she has dropped some L's to like Felice Herrig in the past, just due to like sometimes she will have these spurts where she kind of loses the volume. But I'm a guess it's because of the weight cut. I mean, she had to get pulled off that. She's missed weight several times. She missed weight for the Marcos fight. I mean, there's been several things that she's had with her weight. So I think she's just slightly better everywhere, faster hand speed. So I'm gonna go with Alexa Grasso to get the unanimous decision.
My boy A. Paul Rocco has me out here dying. I see stiffness, like to quote the great Conor McGregor. No, I feel you on that. I'll go with Grasso as well. Co-main event of the evening in the welterweight division. We got a matchup between the former champion Robbie Lawler, he's 28-14, and Neil Magny is 23-7. Currently, they got Neil Magny minus 230. The comeback on Robbie Lawler is plus 210. Man, I disagree with this line a lot. I'll let you guys know why. So, obviously, Neil Magny has been doing his thing since the Ponzinibbio fight, where Ponzinibbio absolutely destroyed him. That was a max bet on Ponzinibbio. But since that point, I haven't called his last two fights right. Li Jingliang goes out there. He's trying to wrestle Neil Magny. Tony Martin stops throwing after round one. Tony Martin, he went from Anthony Rocco Martin to all of a sudden now he's back to Tony Martin because, at 155, he was always known for, gassing out after the first round. And then at welterweight, he seemed like a new man. And then Neil Magny brought out the Tony Martin and Anthony Rocco Martin, you know what I mean? Made him gas out. Now, here with Robbie, it's interesting because there's a couple different ways to look at it. Obviously, there's the whole thing. Is Robbie done? Is Robbie, how many fights left? How many fights left does he have? The whole bit. I completely get that. And also those last couple fights have not been very inspiring. But I also look at the level of competition he's been fighting, man. Guys like Colby Covington, Colby would pick Neil Magny up and throw him out the cage, right? And then RDA, I mean, I don't even need to tell you what would happen if RDA and Neil Magny fought because they did fight and the fight was over in like 90 seconds. You know what I mean? So these guys are nowhere. Neil Magny is nowhere near the level of these guys that have been beating Robbie Lawler. And then Ben Askren, I thought Robbie Lawler knocked Ben Askren out in the first round. Wakes him up with a follow-up punch. The ref lets it continue. It was a very controversial stoppage. But back to this matchup, I feel like sometimes with these legends, when they take some time off, it gives them time to refresh. It gives them time to come back out here and get back on the winning track. You look at a guy like Frankie Edgar, even though I felt like he lost, he got his arm raised. You look at a guy like Chris Weidman, even though I felt like he looked like shit, he got his arm raised. Now you're looking at a guy like Robbie Lawler. A couple of years ago, Robbie Lawler would never be a plus 200 dog to Neil Magny. It's just that people think Neil Magny is going to come out here with his tremendous volume, his cardio from, Denver elevation, come out here, push the pace, rack up the numbers against Robbie Lawler. I completely understand. And there's a chance if Robbie's done, that's probably what's going to happen. Because I know, Shaq, you remember back in the Strikeforce days, there's motivated Robbie Lawler and there's unmotivated Robbie Lawler. Unmotivated Robbie Lawler will stand there and shadow box in the middle of the fight, and you'll be like, dude, what the hell is going on? Like, you remember that fight with Babaluso Brawl, where like he literally shadow boxed the entire fight? You're wondering what the fuck is going on. And then in his post-fight speech, he was like, I was just trying to knock him out. It's like, no, Robbie, we got to get that output on point. But since that point, you know what I mean? Went out there, beat Rory McDonald twice, won the UFC belt, defended it a bunch. So he's definitely evolved into something better. But now here against Neil Magny, I think it's a situation where the first round, Neil's going to be a little wary of that power that Robbie brings to the table. I think that Robbie's going to crack Neil with some hard stuff in that first round, probably take that first round, maybe even get a knockout. Second round is going to be a little bit closer. That's when Neil starts to pick it up a little bit more. Two of the judges probably see it for Robbie. Maybe one sees it for Neil. Third round's probably going to be all Neil. So it'll come down to how do these judges score it. The one guy that's going to win by knockout is Robbie. But what happens if it goes to decision? That's the big question here. man, I really feel like the first half of the fight is going to go Robbie's way. The second half is going to go Neil's way. We're looking at a plus 200 line. I'm going to go with Robbie Lawler to get back on track here, man. I think that he can either knock Neil Magny out or win enough of the first 7 minutes, land some hard shit in those first 7 minutes, get the judges to kind of see it his way, and then survive when Neil starts to, pile up that output in the third round. So at these odds, I got Robbie Lawler here for the win.
Yeah, it's an interesting matchup because it's been a while since we've seen anything positive from Robbie. Robbie, I know he had the Askren fight. He had some good moments, but it didn't end well. And then the Dos Anjos fight, he got dominated in. Colby Covington, but at the same time, all those guys I just said, had a belt at some point, I believe, right? So. I think, this is a step down, and a lot of times, man, this is a issue. Even sometimes, that everyone struggles with this. We all think, most people think Robbie Lawler's done. He's on his way out, but he's not fighting a two-time All-American wrestler that's gonna press him against the fence and not give him any space. Or Dos Anjos, different matchup, just got on him with the calf kicks and messed up his knee. And then the Askren fight, it is what it is. And I feel like this fight, I feel like the best case for Robbie, kind of similar to the Cerrone fight, where he kind of like, fighting a long striker, kind of comes out, gets off to a good start, kind of like what you're saying. Magny is more than likely going to win the third round. Magny is a hard worker. He doesn't give up. But, man, I wouldn't fully just say Magny's back yet. I feel like, Li Jingliang and Rocco Martin are kind of like fringe top 20, 25, 30 type of guys. And Robbie Lawler just has that aura about him where he might kind of intimidate Neil Magny a little bit, just being the fact that he's Robbie Lawler. Everyone in the fight game has a respect for Robbie Lawler. Obviously, you got to be worried that Robbie's not going to throw enough down the stretch, and like you said, it's gonna be a real points game with Neil because we know the type of fighter that he is. Man, there's undeniably, I do think there's some value on the line. Like I do slightly favor Neil just because he's fought a little bit more recently, 2 fights back to back. He throws more, and more than likely, if this goes to the cards, he's gonna win. But plus 200, it's like, god damn, that means like shit. Neil about to come out here and get a finish. Like, possibly. I don't think there's any possibility he gets a finish. Like I just feel like this line is indicating that Neil Magny's like about to set a significant strike record on Robbie Lawler like Colby Covington did or something, man. And I don't think that's going to be the case. I feel like it's going to be a closely contested battle. Wouldn't shock me 100% if Neil just threw more and outworked him. But yeah, man, I think it's a dog or pass situation. Magny, he's looked good these last 2 fights, man, 100%. But Tony Martin and Li Jingliang just haven't been on that level, man, as a Robbie Lawler. And I know Robbie Lawler hasn't looked good in a long time, but like you said, man, maybe. And on the flip side, I have heard this, Robbie Lawler's motivated and Robbie Lawler's rejuvenated. We've heard that story several times, but, it's just a little bit of a trend I've been seeing, man. Kind of like with Pedro and Frankie, I guess, in a sense. But, I feel like there is some value. So, man, I'll take Robbie as well.
Main event of the evening in the light heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Anthony Lionheart Smith. He's 33-15, and Alexander Rakic is 12-2. Currently, they got Alexander Rakic minus 255. The comeback on Anthony Smith is plus 215. Shaq, this is a hell of a main event. And real quick, for all the fans listening, this is a 3-round fight, not a 5-round fight. There was originally supposed to be a different main event. These guys stepped up, and it's a great fight. So, lots of different shit we got to talk about, man. Firstly, this whole Anthony Smith is a comeback kid talk. I know officially he's got a lot of 3rd-round finishes, and he does get off to a slow start, but we got to point out his last 2 fights, he went out there and won the 1st round of his last 2 fights against Gustafsson and against Glover. He won the 1st round unanimously, so that's a good step in the right direction for someone that's known as a comeback kid. Now, as far as Rakic is concerned, now I know there's a lot of Rakic supporters out there, and I think he's a very talented guy too. But the reason why it might sound like I'm being a little critical on him or this or that is just because of the way people regard him. If people just said that Rakic was just some average guy, then I probably wouldn't even mention these things. But the fact that people regard him as a future world champion, well, now I got to address this kind of shit. So, firstly, why are we the only podcast on planet Earth that mentions that Alexander Yo, sorry about that, guys. But anyways, as I was saying, why are we the only podcast on planet Earth that will mention the fact that Alexander Rakic went out there and got dropped by Devin Clark twice? Okay, like to everyone else, that's not sketchy at all. To me, it's extremely sketchy. Like you guys are talking about a future world champion. Future world champions don't get dropped by Devin Clark twice. That's all I got to say on that front. And then the other criticism I have is that in that Volkan Uzdemir fight, people are taking the easy way out and saying, oh, that was a robbery this, robbery that. That wasn't a fucking robbery. The only round Rakic won was round one. He won round one. He lost round two. He lost round three. How the fuck is that a robbery? That wasn't a robbery. When the going got tough, he wasn't able to bite down on that mouthpiece and deliver the win. And that's just the bottom line. So when people talk about this guy being a future world champion, like he's got a little bit more to prove before we talk like that. Now, real quick, someone said, were those Clark knees illegal? What knees? I mean, he went out there and dropped him with the overhand right. You know what I'm saying? No, I know what knees you're talking about, but you got dropped twice before the knees. So I'm not even worrying about the knees, man. He got floored first punch of the fight. So there's a lot of sketchy shit with Rakic. Now, the good stuff with Rakic, because we're going to talk about the good too. He's a physical freak. He's huge for the weight class. He hits like a truck. He's got kickboxing experience. He's got good offensive wrestling too. He's a big boy, like we mentioned already. And with some good experience, with some good seasoning behind him, I feel like he's going to come out here, win a lot of fights. Now, with Anthony Lionheart-Smith, for someone that's known for getting off to these slow starts, that last fight against Glover, man, if he could have just maintained that output the rest of the fight, I feel like, man, he'd actually move up the rankings because he was going out there. That wasn't like Anthony Lionheart-Smith to me, Shaq. That was like James Krause at 205, man. The jabs, the calf kicks, the knees. I was like, damn, Anthony, this is beautiful. But he wasn't able to keep it up. And then once he started getting teed off on, man, it was very uncomfortable to watch, my friend. Now he's coming back very shortly after, hasn't had much of a break. And I feel like, look, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physician, all that shit. But if one of my guys took a beating like that, I'd say, hey, let's take 6 months off. You know what I mean, Shaq? Let's take some time off, rekindle that flame, heal up a little bit. But Anthony wants to jump back in there. And I don't really like the things I've been hearing Anthony saying, saying he's talking more about a title shot than he is talking about Rakic. This week, he's kind of changed his tune a little bit. But leading up until the fight, it was all about the title shot. He doesn't think this guy is anywhere near his level. I don't think you should be overlooking a guy like Rakic at all. Now, when Rakic was like minus 300, I was thinking that was getting up there way too high. Now I kind of understand minus 255. Hey, I feel like that's a little bit more reasonable. So I lean with Rakic, man. I feel like, he's a little bit fresher right now. He's got more room to make improvements. He's probably going to hit Anthony with some hard shit to the body and to the chin. I think there's a good chance he puts him out. But, man, if he lets everything out again and, has nothing left in the second and third rounds, Anthony is experienced enough where he can come out here, gain some momentum, and possibly put it on Rakic late. But I'm going to lean with Rakic, man. I think that this is a good time for him. Timing is everything. I'm going to go with Rakic to win this one here.
Yeah, man. I feel like you hit some good points. I feel like Rakic was overrated. I still feel like he is still a bit overrated, but in this particular spot against Smith, it could potentially be a good fight. And the reason why I say Rakic was overrated is because, look, he had the 2 wins over Bahozo, UFC reject, Justin Ledet. It hasn't. I know he was undefeated at the time when they fought, but now I think we can see that, Justin Ledet, the move to 205 just hasn't translated. And then, the Devin Clark fight in which he got dropped in, and then, you this vicious KO of Vianna. I mean, let's just be honest there. At that point, everyone in there, I mean, the light heavyweight division trains on Jimmy Manawa at that point, man. I mean, Black Hole got him, Okan KO'd him, Thiago Santos KO'd him. So I feel like Rakic was able to just get the remains there, and I feel like pretty much every top 10, light heavyweight would have done that to Jimmy Manawa. So I just don't put that much stock into it. Beautiful knockout, don't get me wrong, but just I don't think it was that hard of a task. And then his fight with Ozdemir, where we really got to see him go 15 minutes. I came into the fight overconfident. I mean, he's still under the impression that he clearly won that fight, which kind of worries me a little bit. But at the same time, like you said, man, Smith kind of just is giving me a vibe of like he kind of doesn't give a shit anymore, And I feel like he's kind of one of those overachievers, man, where, I mean, if you would have told me 5, 6 years ago that Anthony Smith would have fought for a UFC light heavyweight title, we would have told. I mean, you know what they used to call him back in Strikeforce? They used to call him, that bum from Strikeforce, man. He used to get finished like every single fight. So, I mean, there's been stretches in his career where he's knocked out 4 or 5 times in a row. So, like, Anthony Smith, I feel like kind of was riding a serious wave at 20 205. Come back down and stoppage losses in general. So I feel like Rakic, man, honestly, I question his toughness and I kind of question his chin slightly. I know he hasn't been knocked out in the UFC, but the Devin Clark fight does alarm me. And another thing I wanted to mention, man, I feel like Anthony Smith, in this last fight with Glover Teixeira, I feel like, man, that was one of the few cases where I kind of do want to blame a corner in a sense. Like, I know that James Krause is a good coach and he's got a bunch of fighters. I mean, he's got fighters out here, every card it seems. But man, like if anyone watching this, goes back and watches that fight, like, or especially the first round, like, I feel like if you hear, like, because there's no fans in there, I feel like if you hear Anthony Smith's corner was just so chaotic. Like, I feel like James Krause was just like trying to say way too many things, and that style I've never really seen Anthony fight like before. And yeah, he looked good, but he's never really, I know Krause has that style, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna work for Anthony Smith. I feel like Smith's a guy that, he kind of is a slow starter and he builds progressively, as where this time he started off good, which everyone starts good against Glover Teixeira. He's slow as molasses. So at the same time, it's like, I mean, who hasn't won the first against Glover Teixeira in the last couple of years? You know what I'm saying? But I feel like his corner kind of just lost a little bit control of the situation, and Cormier kind of hit on it during the fight. They're kind of going crazy over there, and I feel like the more they were talking and saying all this shit, Anthony just kept throwing, while Glover, kind of like the video game, was just pressuring him, not throwing anything up until the 7-8 minute mark, and then that's when the tide completely turned, man. So I kind of blame Anthony. I kind of blame James Krause. Not saying James Krause is a good coach, but I feel like, man, they need some more work together. Maybe Anthony has to step back to move forward, but man, I feel like Rakic can control the center. I feel like he can kind of just control the action, as in like land. He only throws like 2-3 shots at a time, but I feel like he can land the harder shots, move, stick to a good game plan, tie him up here and there, and kind of stay ahead. But at the same time, you are paying -250 for that. It's just that Anthony Smith, I do truly feel like he was an overachiever. I thought he was going to be able to get the first round stoppage over Glover, but things didn't go his way. But man, his whole career, been a guy that has so much energy for the rounds, and the fact that man, I feel like he needs to be more of a stationary, plotty guy in the early rounds and build up instead of, trying to use this energy early. Because Anthony's a big guy, even though he's coming up from 85s. So I'm going to go with Rakic, man. I feel like he's just slightly sharper. I feel like he's in better health conditions as of right now, in terms of the chin. But at the same time, man, I feel like Rakic is super cocky and a little bit delusional, man, in some of his interviews. Like, I feel like this Volkan fight was a clear 2-1 that he lost. I mean, his leg was, the size of like that thing. I don't get what he's talking about, but I'm gonna go with Rakic for a somewhat comfortable decision win.
Yeah, Rakic was like, everyone knows I won. No, we don't, Alexander. No, we don't. But you know how that shit goes, man. A lot of delusion in the fight game, my friend. Now, real quick, before we get out of here, before we talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch, Big Chief just says Springer and Cifers missed weight, so that's good to know. 8-Ball Rocco said, shout out to MLK. I Have a Dream was on this day in 1963. So shout out to the legend, the hero, MLK. We're from Georgia, so I'm very proud to have learned about that great man. And Shaq, now let's talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So what is the fight to watch for UFC Vegas 8?
My fight to watch is gonna be Jan Cutelaba versus Ankalaev, because that Cutelaba is gonna charge at him during the fighter introductions, and the security is gonna have to get between the two, feeling knocked out. So it's my fight to watch.
Yeah, look, my fight to watch is gonna be Impa Kasanganai versus Coconut Bombs. There's no way that this fight is going to be boring. Anytime these two fight, it's super exciting. And I want to see what Impa looks like in his UFC debut. Look, a lot of people thought he should have got signed after Contender Series the first time. They bring him back a year later. He gets another win. Now he's in the UFC. He's only 7-0, but I feel like the sky's the limit. And then Magny Pitolo, very well-rounded guy, hits like a truck, super exciting. I'm pumped for that fight, Shaq. Well, Shaq, who is your fighter to watch?
In the main event, it's Alexander Rakic. Personally, I don't see no future world champion. I want to see what he does against Anthony Smith, because Anthony Smith, I don't see a title in his future either. But at the same time, Anthony's a good test to see where you're at, man. He's got the wins over Alexander Gustafsson and Volkan Ozdemir. So this is going to be, if Alexander is able to get this win, I feel like this will like stamped legit win over a former title challenger, and I feel like a big fight would be on his horizons. Then he'll be 1 or 2 away from a title shot. So he's my fighter to watch.
Yeah, no doubt about it. For me, my fighter to watch is the former champion, Ruthless Robbie Lawler. I mean, this is such an important fight in his career, not only because a couple of years ago he wouldn't be caught dead losing to a guy like Neil Magny, but because this is a chance for him to get back on track, get a win, go back out there, put on a show, remind people that, hey, I still got something left to give, and I'm still a relevant top 15 guy. So I feel like, hey, not only that, you also consider the momentum Magny's got right now coming off those 2 wins. People are really high on him right now. If Robbie can kind of halt that momentum, kind of put it on his side a little bit, I feel like that's a huge win in this day and age. So Robbie Lawler is my fighter to watch. Well, Shaq, we did it. It's going down tomorrow, Saturday night, UFC Vegas 8, Alexander Rakic versus Anthony Lionheart Smith. They can follow you at MMA Genius 05. They can follow me at Best Fight Picks and get our plays at bestfightpicks.com. We truly want to thank all our fans, all our listeners, all our supporters. We know we did this last minute, but the fact that so many of you hopped on here with us and checked this out live, it's truly amazing. Maybe we'll start doing these live streams soon, because that saves a lot of editing time, but it's also awesome to be able to interact with you guys like this. So thank you guys so much. Make sure you'll subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify, all the places where we are available. Hit that like button below. Hit that subscribe button. We truly appreciate it. We'll be back next week for the next fight card. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.